I got interested in this topic because there was a lot of my colleagues at Poughkeepsie City School District that were involved in Teach for America. I never knew about the association. And since I'm responsible for making students college and career ready, I want to know every single avenue so I can advise them which way to go if they want to be a teacher and what their different choices are. So there was a lot of controversy around Teach for America because they recruit non-education majors. So I chose to interview 4 participants. I had one teacher in my building who actually went through Teach for America. I had a principal in my building that worked with Teach for America participants. I had a lady from the Teach for America program that deals with the preparation hands-on, and I also had an advisor from a college that worked with participants that were Teach for America and also regular traditional pathways. So in my research, I chose to focus my attention on the non-traditional pathway versus the TFA pathway. I had to focus on more of the feelings and the experience of the TFA teacher. I focused on how prepared was a TFA teacher for the reality of teaching compared to the traditional pathway. What was their expectations of the career going into it? Meaning, did they actually want to be lifelong teachers or career teachers, or did they just want to get into it for the perks that came along with TFA? The third question, and how did they feel now? How did they feel when they originally got into the program, and how did they feel after they did their 2 years?
Were you trying to see any differences between like gender or the undergraduate institutions that people went to? Because that could have created implicit biases into how like they dealt with these questions.
Yeah, I was, but I had a limited sample size of who I was interviewing.
Okay.
So again, I only interviewed one teacher that was in the TFA program. So within itself, that has biases of itself, right? So did she have a great experience with the program? I didn't really get to speak to anyone that had a negative experience with the program. It was a bias in a positive direction rather than a negative direction in a sense, because she had such a great experience with the program.
I'm not sure if you were able to do this, but were you able to talk to any students of any teachers who had TFA? Or was that kind of like outside of was that a part of the
I really tried to stay away from how the students felt. I more wanted to focus on how the participant of the TFA program felt about the program and how they felt about the preparation and how they felt about their preparedness to go into the classroom. And I really wanted to focus on the effectiveness, but I couldn't do quantitative. So I had to more focus on how do they feel in the classroom, were they comfortable in the classroom, was their training effectively enough so that they could be prepared to implement instructions, deal with classroom management, deal with the everyday structures of the classroom. So the literature for me was more about why would a participant get into the TFA program. So I'm not going to thoroughly go into all the different reasons, but there was 5 different reasons of why someone might go into the TFA program. So what I did with the data analysis was the first step is I did recorded interviews, and then I had to transcribe these interviews, and I did Atlas TI, and then I coded the interviews, and then from the coding, first actually I listened to the interviews and I took notes on the interview. And then once I took notes, I imported it into Atlas TI, and then I coded them, and then I made memos about the codes. In the codes, I found themes to the codes, and at first it was really difficult to find the themes and the connections between 4 different types of participants, meaning all different types of levels, teachers, administrators, people in the TFA preparation program, and then people just in the college. So there wasn't much connections, but I had to look really deeply, and there was connections. There was all positive connections for TFA for my participants. I'm not sure if this will be the same if I had a larger sample size. I had a lot of questions still, and I had to do follow-up interviews. So at first I didn't have enough information, and I had to go back in and do follow-up interviews and ask questions to directly kind of get the answers that I needed to fill in the gaps. And I was successful in doing that. The results, like how I did it, I put it into buckets from the interview questions. Yeah. So I took all the interview questions and then I coded them, and then I made themes from those codes, and then I put them into buckets. And from those buckets, I focused on the training and their expectation of the training, really focusing on the corps member. And within themselves, I found that they have this like cult type organization. Like, they will not say anything negative about their organization. And that was something that I found within the data. They will not say anything negative about their program. They're really invested in TFA working for the future, TFA working in the present, and doing whatever they can do to make sure that it's going to be effective. Okay. And then next, first I did the training, and I coded that, and I focused on the corps members, and then I said, how did they feel in the beginning? Coded all that information. How did they feel in the current moment where they were teaching now? If they were not teaching, a lot of teachers were doing like SAT prep or other little things that did still have to do with education, but they might not necessarily be in the classroom still. And then what did they see their future looking like? Because I really wanted to see if they were invested and if this was a program that was worth investing money into, or if that money could be allotted somewhere else. The teacher that I found, I felt like she thought that her training was effective. She thought that it was too short. And that basically she wishes that she could have went through more training and she would have been more prepared for the classroom. But I really feel like that's a consistent message across the board. Like every teacher is never prepared to go into the classroom, regardless if you did 4 years of training or if you did a whole summer of training, you're still not going to be prepared. So those same feelings were consistent across the board. But when I spoke to the administrator, they didn't see any difference between a TFA teacher and a regular teacher. They felt like they were both invested, their lessons were both equally quality, so there was really no difference between how the administrator felt. Yes.
Do you think that within that, teacher feeling of I don't feel prepared, do you think that it was more so like a thing of, could you at least target, was it like classroom management that was the issue that they didn't feel prepared for, or was it more so like curriculum planning and executing lessons?
See, TFA teachers were more efficient with research-based strategies. So they were trained on what was going to work parallel to research. The regular traditional teacher was more prepared in like lesson planning, classroom management, cooperative learning, but I think it was not just about a job. Once they got into it, they figured out that they do actually have a passion, and most of the people in TFA are successful people with great work ethic, so they would succeed in whatever they do, but they do most of the time stay in education. I put my interview questions at the end, so I attached the interview questions so that you could directly see what the interview questions were. And then I made buckets so that you could see their responses and the connections with the coding and the